conditions people live in, where they got family, like, 4 or 5 people crammed in and like what look like dog beds on the floor. It's heartbreaking. And a lot of the stuff is all the time you see it's the landlords behind it.
Yeah.
Many times you'll see like people, there's no reason if you're renting and even if you're not paying a rent, that you should have ceilings caving in and active leaks. And I've seen buildings where rain was coming in and plumbing was backing up and nobody cares. And it's heartbreaking to see that, because I know that you can make all the profits and make all the money and all the exciting stuff that you and I are talking about, while also giving people the respect they deserve and giving people good homes to live in.
Hey, what's up, all my real estate peeps? This is Brian Lucier with another episode of the Why Not Real Estate Podcast. Today, I have one of my clients on with me. A couple of minutes ago, we were just talking, and it's actually the first time I've ever seen or met him. I've been working for him for a couple of years for a property he owns, and we may get to talk about that a little bit, but let's get started. So my guest today is one of the co-founders of Blue Canyon Equity Partners. They're based out of Massachusetts, and they're currently buying up assets. They're doing asset management, different types of property strategies. My particular guest on today performs analytics in the multifamily and commercial realm. He's a managing member of several different joint venture companies, several different scattered syndications throughout the south coast of Massachusetts. My pleasure to have on the show today. I want to introduce him to the platform today. My client, Mr. Matt Davis. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love doing these. You look great. You're probably half my age. So yeah, let's jump in. So I know a little bit about your story from working with you at your property, but what did you used to do before getting involved with real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I first became interested in real estate when I was studying engineering back in college. Kind of took it up as a side interest and began learning a whole bunch about it. And then graduated college, started working in engineering, and just kind of built up a real estate business on the side. And so that kind of brings me to where I am today.
So engineering was, I'll call it, your first love. And
Yes.
I could definitely see how some of that flows over into your real estate. So was there a transition point at some point? Was there some spark that happened for you? It's like, okay, I love being an engineer. I love the traditional training I'm doing. I just think that way. I just actually got off a call an hour and 20 minutes with an engineer who's a new client. So I really enjoyed the conversation because I kind of think that way. So was there that spark or light switch moment that engineering kind of said, wait a minute, why not real estate?
Yeah, I think engineering really played to my strengths. I think just in those areas where I'm good is analytics and understanding things kind of in that more technical sense. And I was able to take advantage of those strengths of mine and apply them to real estate. And so I saw a lot of business and professional opportunity within real estate, just like engineering. I honestly love them both. And so I think I get different things out of my engineering experiences and my real estate experiences. I think they really do complement each other well, as separate as they are.
So was there some influence or person or event or infomercial? Was there something that kind of jumped out to you that said real estate was an option or something you could do?
Yeah, so kind of the story about how it became an interest of mine was I had known of people in my life, some extended family members who have been somewhat involved in real estate or development or flipping property. And so I was aware of it, but I never really thought it necessarily was for me. And then back when I was in college, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and like so many other people, it just lit some sort of fire and got some sort of understanding, across that it wasn't necessarily new information or technical information, but it just changed the way I thought about things. And I think there's a lot of people who have the same exact story. And so that trickled into the next book, and started listening to podcasts and this and that. And it just exploded. And I've never lost interest since.
So the cube right underneath the gold bars, that is the Kiyosaki shelf. That's like all the Rich Dad books are in there.
It's funny. I haven't read any of his others, but his first one, The Rich Dad Poor Dad, was so impactful. Maybe I should get around to it.
I would definitely recommend Cash Flow Quadrant.
Okay.
One. And then Rich Dad's Advisors, Ken McElroy, The ABCs of Real Estate Investing. You're already doing that, but nice to have a blueprint to follow. You mentioned you had some family members that were involved in real estate. Some of them were flipping. Were any of those family members doing multifamily?
So when I say this, I'm talking really specifically about, I have an uncle who's was originally in construction and reconstruction, and then had lots of experiences in flipping and development while he was running his construction business and all of this. And well, I think he's the wealthiest person in my family. At least he appears to be.
For now.
And so I noticed, okay, he must be doing something different, and so I think I was always curious about his business and what he was doing, and I, it was very clear that entrepreneurship. He was also the only entrepreneur in my family, I believe, at the time when I was younger, and so I always kind of looked up to him. I thought that was kind of cool, and it snowballed into. It really just put real estate on my radar. It really didn't. I wouldn't say my relationship with him is what got me into real estate by any means, but it put it on my radar. And then the book, and then all this other stuff came together, and I could just picture myself in that position.
So you're an engineer. You got turned on to real estate. What was the next steps in progression?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So I graduated school. I was kind of waited till I was out of college and settled into my regular corporate life before I, really got serious about buying anything. And then at one point I looked back and said, okay, I've been probably 3-4 years now. I've been reading books and learning about real estate and wanting to be in real estate, but I still haven't done anything. And not only that, I've never talked to anyone about it. I was just kind of self-educating. So it brought me a pretty good background in real estate, but nothing was happening. And so I eventually gave myself a kick in the butt and went to a real estate meetup. It was a spur of the moment. I think I learned that meetup was happening the same day that I went, and I met some people there. And those relationships are still strong relationships that I have today. I've done some of these people, in fact, all the people I've done, I don't know about all, but most of the people I've done real estate deals and projects with have, been from meetups and networking events, people that I've met through these different pathways. And so, it all just kind of snowballed. And I met a real estate agent at the time who ended up representing me as my real estate agent. And we went out together, started looking at properties, and through my relationship with him, brought a really good deal to the table. And that was my first project.
Do you recall which meetup that first one was?
Yeah, that was at the time it was called Pints and Properties. Now it's called the Simplified Real Estate Investment Meetup.
I actually was a host on Pints and Properties podcast from Aruba.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I met Ryan Emmerich.
Okay.
He was asking me questions and all that. So Pints and Property, that one has been around. And now it's called what for the viewers?
They rebranded because there's another group called Pints and Properties, I think, based out of somewhere in the South or Mid-Atlantic. And so just so that there wasn't too much overlap between the two names of two totally separate meetup groups, they rebranded it to match their Simplified as kind of their property management brand, and I think they have Simplified Development and this and that. So it was just kind of rebranded, but it's the same meetup.
Perfect. So just to recap, you got off your butt. You took massive action. Kudos for you. You took all that education. I hear all the time, knowledge is power. Well, yeah, but you got to take action on that, which you did. Kudos to you. You went to the Simplified. You met networking partners who you were able to later do deals with. You found a realtor who was able to help you get some of these properties. So here you are, you're walking the talk, you're talking the walk, you're out there, you're looking at deals. So let's drive into the next question here. What was the first deal you purchased? And tell me the story up to that. How many frogs did you have to kiss before you found that prince?
Yeah, so it happened relatively quickly, but from when I started actively looking to when I got my first deal. But what wasn't quick was the years and years of self-education that led up to that point that allowed me to kind of jump in pretty quick. I had a good understanding of the fundamentals of structuring real estate, partnerships, and financing, and how to underwrite, and all of this. I basically had nailed down from an educational standpoint, but I had never applied it. But when it came the opportunity to apply it, I was able to move pretty quick. So maybe 6 months after that first meetup where I met that real estate agent, I had a deal under contract, and it ended up taking, I think, a year or something crazy to close because of a bunch of technical stuff that was going on with this sale process. But nonetheless, we got to the closing table, and I think it was the best deal I've ever done. So.
Oh, wow. Okay, then we're going to drill down on this. So what type of property was it? How did you find it? Yeah, what type of property? How did you find it? How did you finance it?
Okay, so this was a 6-unit multifamily property. I found it off market through a real estate agent. It came to him through his network, and this was Jonathan Babacci from Candor Realty. This was in the very early days of his company. He, in the early days of Candor, he found out about this opportunity through his network, and then together him and I looked at most of these of a bunch of properties that were being sold off market, and I ended up picking actually 2 of them, and I ended up closing. I got 2 under contract at the same time. I didn't even know I could handle that, but sure enough, I did. And I even said to him at one point, I said, I can't close on 2 at the same time. And he said, why not?
Yeah, why not?
That's a good question. Why not? So one was smaller and it became a house hack, and the other was the 6-unit, which I ended up closing with commercial financing.
So why not seems to be a reoccurring theme on this podcast.
Yes, absolutely. I'm playing into the show title a little bit. So the other question was, okay, so you said, what was it? How did I find it? Where did I find it? I answered that. And then how did I finance it?
Right.
To finance it, I went with a small local credit union. John Dark Credit Union financed this one. I had a referral from this agent that I had a very good relationship with at the time. When you're getting your first commercial financing and you have no experience, you're going to do everything you can to position yourself so that they, respect you when you come up to them, and they don't see you as just some kid who's trying to buy his first deal, right? So, I had a referral, and I went and I wrote up a 15-page loan request package. And this is a concept that I had learned from reading Commercial Mortgages 101, which is a book. I don't remember the author of it, but in the book, it outlines basically all the things that a commercial multifamily lender will look at when they're evaluating a deal. And so if you take all of that information and put it together in one Word document and organize it really neatly and send it to them, they think you're a professional, even though you've never done a deal before. So I had everything in there, and I think that's kind of why they took that leap of faith and gave financing to an investor who had plenty of education but really no experience.
Well, you did have the experience because you trained, you read the book, you prepared yourself. That's part of the experience. I was absolutely going to ask you because I know that a 6-unit has to be a commercial loan. And you addressed that question. Really smart on you to put together this 15-page document. I did a podcast released a couple of weeks ago on business plans and how important that is. And I walked over those 5 things that you need to do. So I'm absolutely going to flag this book, Commercial Mortgages 101. I'm going to put that in the notes. And if it's not on my rack behind me, I definitely want to browse that one. So I want to mention a few things about commercial mortgages that maybe our viewers may not know. You can negotiate all of the terms on a commercial mortgage. So if you're doing your typical Freddie, Fannie, FHA, whatever, you get to pick between the chiclets that are in this row and this section, these 2 boxes, right? Commercial loans, everything's are negotiable. So in the loan package that you put together with this local credit union, what do you think were some of the benefits that you were able to win in the negotiations on it? What are some of the things that you asked for that were a win?
Yeah, so I basically in it, I proposed all the terms that I wanted to propose to the bank that I wanted. And of these various different terms, I talked to people to get an idea of what was typical. And then I asked for a little bit better. And I knew that I wasn't going to get everything I asked for. But if I asked for terms that were unrealistic, then I don't look like I know what I'm doing. But if I ask for terms that are worse than their standard terms, then that's not going to work out very well for me either. So I understood what interest rates were. I understood that this particular bank was, using a particular index and spread typically. So I asked for a nice spread on that index. I knew, I think this was a 25-year amortization. My understanding at the time was that I don't know if the bank was typically doing 30-year. It would have been better because more cash flow if you do a 30-year amortization. Maybe I should have asked for that, but I asked for 25 and that's what I got. I think I laid out a request that was very reasonable, but also good. And then when I threw in all the other information to show as much experience as I could, a lot of the terms they'll give you it's all risk adjusted, right? So if you're someone who does a ton of business with this bank, they know you're reliable. They may give you better terms than the new guy who shows up. So I certainly laid out my experiences as well as I could. And all my team members, one of the sections of this package was, who's your team? And my team was just me at the time, technically, because it was just me buying the property. But, I took John Bombachi, who was my mentor and advisor at the time. I said, he's on my team. I wasn't misleading him. I wasn't saying that he was a partner. He's a team member. My CPA at the time, which isn't my CPA now, but at the time my different uncle was a CPA. So I put his name down. I said, he's my CPA. I knew of a particular closing attorney that John would always work with, and I met him and I had a relationship with him a little bit by then. So I said, he's my attorney. And I put all these professionals down. And next thing you know, I got a whole page about this really solid team of mine. So that's my experience. This whole team that's guiding me along the way. Just even though it's my first deal, I did have experience, so that helped too.
It takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah,
to get a commercial loan.
Yeah, definitely.
So, of the terms that you put out there, I mean, some of these were probably concessions that you would be willing to say, okay, I really wanted that, but I won't ask for it, even though it's something that wouldn't have made a difference in your deal. So you came in with really smart strategy to lay this all out. Do you think you got mostly everything that you wanted? And I know that you said it took a year to get there, so I want to drill down in there. Of the terms you asked for, what percentage do you think you got, and what were some of the throwaways?
I don't really recall. It's difficult for me to answer that. But what I will say is, at the time, I wasn't concerned about the terms really. I was concerned about getting the loan.
Wow.
I just wanted to get the loan. I didn't, first of all, this was back in the very, very early days of COVID. That was the complication that came up in the middle of this deal. Was basically I got it under contract, like to close right about when everything was shutting down. So that was a big part of all the delays. And it was my first deal. All I cared was I got financing and that it cash flowed. And the deal was a slam dunk. So I knew that it was financially stable no matter what terms they offered me. I didn't really think of, oh, I got to optimize my cash flow by trying to get, 0.5% interest shaved off or something like that. I was just, I got to get this loan, whatever it takes.
So I want to ask about, let's see, for a commercial loan, most of the time they want to see 2-year tax returns, some seasoning on the business to do a commercial loan. So what was your situation on that, and how did you approach all that?
The building was fully rented. So, it had relatively, good income history that we could work off of, right? So I had a really good solid P&L that was, there wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't a huge rehab. It wasn't vacant. It was just a good operating property with a really, really appealing debt service coverage ratio. And so the banks were comfortable with it naturally. It was a fantastic deal, which made financing it all that much easier. Something that I had offered on prior to that, I didn't know as much what I was doing. I was probably overpaying. The bank caught on. They're like, hold on, this doesn't meet debt service coverage ratio requirements. They said no to my financing request. I learned a lot from that experience that happened probably 3 months prior to getting this one under contract. And it positioned me in a much better spot when I was asking for financing the second time.
So when you applied for the loan, most of the time for a commercial loan, you have to apply for it as an entity or an LLC or some type of.
Yes.
So what did that look like? How did you structure all that?
Yeah, so we formed an LLC. I was raising money from 2 partners who were also new in real estate. They kind of helped with the down payment, and they were a lot more hands off. It was kind of me running the show, and then these 2 individuals who were sophisticated investors but not real estate experienced, jumped in, took on it was really a joint venture, but they were for the most part kind of, trusted me to kind of guide the show a little bit, or at least bring the experience to the table. And, we formed this LLC for this particular deal. This is a standard way. It happens a lot of the time. You form an LLC with the purpose of a particular purchase. Our attorney who was doing the closing also did all the operating agreements and formed the entity and all those details. That was all squared away. We got our EIN number and we were ready to go. So I was able to fill out the official loan application with all those aspects figured out.
That was really good. I enjoy your answer, and I want to play it back here. So what you did was smart. You formed an LLC specifically for that deal.
Yes.
So, okay, I'm an old dog. I didn't read those books. I wasn't as smart my first time doing a commercial. So my first time doing a commercial, I was banging on the wall of, well, you've only been in business for so many years, so come back next year or come back 2 years, whatever. So you were clever, and you were probably right up front with that, saying we formed this LLC specifically for this deal.
Yes, and that's what I would recommend to any especially first time commercial mortgage applicant today would be simplify it, create a new entity, bring your team together, write out a loan request package or a business plan or just some document that's professionally made, that shows that you've thought about it, right? And that you're organized and responsible, and pitch this investment. The building is the investment, and your team, whoever it is, whether it's just you or you have partners or investors or however you plan to do it, and lay it all out there. Be honest, be open, but be wise, and it'll probably go your way if the deal's good.
So you had the attorney put together the partnership agreement. You mentioned maybe well, you said it was an LLC,
Yeah.
and your other two partners who were sophisticated investors came in as JVs.
Yes.
They were all named in this formation of this entity, and the roles were defined, and everybody knew what
Yep.
seat they were on the bus.
Yeah. So, for example, one of them is a professional bookkeeper, right? So, understands accounting and finance and business, just hadn't bought real estate before. I'm the one who didn't have any experience, but I know a lot from my studies. And the third one was another smart engineer who knew what he was doing and was, wise at evaluating investment opportunities, even though he didn't have experience. And together, we each put in about the same amount of money, give or take, and it made the down payment reasonable, because the down payment's one of the biggest challenges with any deal for a lot of people, especially starting out. So, sometimes you got to partner up in order to get enough money to buy your first one, unless you're going to do something creative. And they kind of served as my proof of funds. This was kind of a trick that I was proud of myself. I thought I figured it out on my own. I don't know if I did, but we had just talked about, hey, if we find a deal, would you guys be interested in partnering with it? And they said, oh yeah, but we didn't find one yet. And I said, okay, cool. I'm like, well, to get anything under contract and to show you, I'm going to need to show them proof of funds. I don't have enough proof of funds to buy any commercial deals at the time. So can each of you just give me a bank statement and a letter just saying that you're interested in buying something if it looks good? And they both, I wrote out the letter and put a blank line for the amount of money not to exceed whatever dollars. And I said, just fill in your name, address, and not to exceed, and sign it. And it wasn't binding. It said the first sentence of the letter, this is a non-binding letter of intent to, engage in a real estate partnership, blah, 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 blah. I looked like a lawyer wrote it, but it was just me. And just one pager, and attach a bank statement to it, and boom, boom, boom. Now I have proof of funds. It was easy.
That was brilliant.
Yeah.
I talk to so many people who overcomplicate this process, and word that keeps coming up here is simplify, simplify, simplify. So you took something that you needed, you found a simple way to solve it. It didn't take brain surgery. It wasn't like this huge event. You didn't use an attorney to do this. You just used a stapler.
Yeah, basically. And yes, that investor letter of intent and proof of funds bank statements, those were attached to that loan request package I was talking to. They were in the appendix or something, and it was all there.
So I want to find out a little bit about the property. And before we drill into the 6 unit, you mentioned there was another property that you closed on, and that was a house hack.
Yes.
What type of property was that?
That was a 2-family. It was nearby, down the street. So they both looked like good deals. The commercial one was a lot cooler in my mind because it was a commercial deal, more units, but they were both good deals. And so I was able to kind of at the same time pursue both of these, but my priority the whole time was the 6 unit. So I was actually telling the lender the whole way for the 2-family. Along the way, I was working with just a conventional lender, FHA. I was telling them along the way, I said, we got to slow this down, because I'm not officially doing anything on this property until this one closes, because this is the other one's my priority. And so once that closed, like a couple months later, I was able to close on the second one, which is the 2-family that I house at.
So one was FHA, one was commercial. Okay, let's focus on the commercial, because that was, dude, your first deal, you pulled down 8 units.
Yeah, basically.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. I was psyched about it when I was doing it. And I think when I look back, I think I did everything I could to position myself for success. And I set myself up to get lucky, and then I did.
Well, you did the homework.
So that's what I would advise anyone to do.
Well, you did the homework, you did the preparation,
Yeah.
you prepared yourself. You didn't walk in off the street kind of saying, well, gee, maybe wouldn't it be nice if all this, you document, 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 staple document.
Yeah.
You laid it all out. That was
Yep.
so, I mean, I keep saying it's brilliant, but it's so common sense. I mean, you have to ask for what you want. And if you don't
Yeah.
ask the right, yeah.
It's honestly not even brilliant. It's the way you should do it. It really is the way you should do it. It's just, you want to be especially when you're engaging in a, $1 million business opportunity or something like that, like act like a professional, and think about, how would a company do this if a company was, be professional um, and you'll get to where you need to go.
So the 6 unit, I want to hear a little bit of backstory here. Was this a value add? What was the story on this property? Why were they selling it? And what were your plans to take this on? What were you going to do with the property after you acquired it?
So at the time, it was mostly occupied. It was outdated, maybe like an 80s vibe in the units. Very like affordable housing vibe to the interiors, and not all the tenants took care of the building the best they could, so it looked a little rundown. But all the bones are really solid. The building had appeared to have been like completely gut renovated, maybe in the 70s. So even though the building's 120 years old, it was clearly like redone right. So it was the really solid bones. So once I bought it, we, basically as the units kind of naturally turned over, we went in and we put in the today's standard, luxury vinyl plank floors. And I'm a big believer in granite countertops in affordable housing, only because when a tenant, a prospective tenant is looking at properties and one of them has granite, and it's, maybe this is their first chance to get to live in something with granite, and you're in a lower income area like this property, and all your competition doesn't have granite counters, just pay the $2,000 or whatever it costs to get granite counters, and now you get your first pick of the best, most qualified tenants. And so, yeah, we just did, my goal was just to make it a little bit better than the competition. Each unit, as they turned, I did a lot of the work hands-on myself, just because I was learning and I wanted to save money everywhere I could. So I didn't go to some big general contractor. I went to the local flooring shop. I said, you come in and put flooring. And then he was done. And I have no hands-on construction experience, but being an engineer, I'm a little bit mechanically inclined. The only thing I didn't touch was plumbing, because I was afraid I'd flood the building or something. But a lot of little handyman jobs around the place I did myself, and called in the granite company. They came and installed the granite. A lot of if a door frame was broken or a door wasn't working right, that's the kind of thing I would fix. I learned so much during this year of stabilization. And right at like the 8-month mark, I had been told going up, you can refinance at 6 months. Banks were, later did I find out that a lot of banks actually want 12 months, but I thought it was 6. So on, 5 months and 3 weeks, I start calling banks. I'm saying, next week I'm hitting 6 months. I'm ready to refinance. I want to pull all this equity out. And sure enough, we actually closed the refinance at the 10 months after it was purchased. So that worked out great. And I got to pull out, all the money we put in and then some, and it was the seed money for the next investment.
So you're hitting all my buttons here. These are the parts of the deals that I love taking a look at when we're on a show like this. So I want to run down the numbers, and because I see the value in this, because so many people might be watching the show, haven't pulled the trigger, definitely didn't do 8 doors on their first deal, and they're on the fence thinking, oh, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could do that. But I want to break down your deal and show them this was your first deal and this is what it looked like. So let's just do the 6 unit if possible. What was your purchase price on the 6?
So the purchase price on this one was $665,000.
Okay, and you mentioned the granite countertops, door jambs, probably some lipstick, plaster, paint, fluffing it up a bit. 6 units. What would you guesstimate that your rehab was over a 10-month period?
Yeah, over 10 months. No, I'm not sure. I don't remember how many of the apartments I had turned before the refinance versus after, but I know that, to date, I've turned 5 of the 6 units. One of them, the original resident, is still there today. And I think overall on the apartments, I've put in 50,000. Now I saved a lot of money DIYing a lot of the stuff, so I'm not even doing renovations that inexpensively today on other projects, but it just worked out. So I'd say put in about 50,000 on the units, and after the refi, I did siding. I resided the building, and that was a big investment. That was another 50,000. So
Okay, so I want to look at this deal before the refi.
before the refi, let's say 50,000.
50. Okay, so you're at 715 all in.
Yeah.
Now, cash out refi. Well, before we go there, what was your down payment? How much did you have to put down? And were you able to negotiate some pretty good commercial terms on the 665?
Yeah, we were originally told 20% down. COVID hit. They bumped that up right like while we were in the closing process to 25% down. So if you have a calculator, we paid 25% of 665 as the down payment.
$166,250. We'll say 167. Okay, so you're 167 in plus the 50K, so you're 217 in. Okay, now your refi 10 months later, what did you take out of the deal?
270,000.
Damn it.
270. I remember that number clear as day because it was very exciting to get that closing statement, watch the deposit come back into the account. And I don't think I ever did the math that you just did and realized that it was basically the same number.
Yeah, you are over 100% return on investment in your first year on your first deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a good deal. It was a very good deal.
Smoking hot?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the exact percentage here, but if you're all in was 217 and you walked out with 270, you got paid $53,000 to buy this property.
Yes, I did. Yeah, it was it was awesome. It was very cool.
That number 53,000 rings close to what a graduate coming out of college might earn as an annual salary.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, sounds about right. Why would you not do this? Why would anybody not do this?
I don't understand. I see, if I were to summarize why real estate, just for me, like it seems like the most certain, low risk, I don't want to say guaranteed, but almost guaranteed way where if you just commit yourself, it's the best way to get into a above average financial position in your life, in not too long. Don't rush. You don't need to worry about the get rich quick and no money down and all that stuff's exciting, but if you just focus on real estate and do your best, it seems like the most certain, guaranteed, low risk way to get yourself into a well above average financial position. Just like go to college, get a good corporate job, work hard is a really almost guaranteed way to find yourself into the middle class. And you can do better, you can do worse in either of these situations, but it seems like, and that's why I do real estate now. I look back, that's what keeps me going. It just seems like if I just keep doing what I'm doing and I focus, I don't give up, I'm going to find myself in a well above average financial position in 5 years, 10 years.
So Matt, how old are you?
27.
You're killing me. I started when I was 38.
I got a little, yeah, I
Yeah.
rushed into it.
11
I'm glad
years
I
from
did.
now, you're going to be my neighbor here. So you've told me the story, the warts, the trials, the triumphs, and the tribulations to get to the end game here. So I'm
Yeah.
going to sum this up into a question which sounds unbelievably impossible, like I'm smoking something.
Okay.
Okay, so Matt, I'm going to pay you $53,000 10 months from now, and I want you to own. Other people are going to buy this property for you, a property worth $662,000, but only if you take the $53,000 and put it in your pocket.
Sounds like a great deal. I'll say yes.
It sounds like I'm a prince calling you from Kenya or something, right?
Yeah.
This doesn't
Yeah.
sound possible.
Yeah. I think people overlook the opportunity. And to get to do all that, well, I feel like another thing that's cool about real estate is you can do all this and you can make great money and all that's exciting, but you can do it while having a positive impact on people's lives as well. I mean, I've walked a ton of real estate that's for sale. And all the time I see just sad situations with the conditions that people live in. And you don't realize, I didn't realize growing up in a, middle class suburban, upper middle class suburban neighborhood. I didn't even realize this was out there until I started seeing it firsthand. But conditions people live in where they got family, like, 4 or 5 people crammed in and like what look like dog beds on the floor. It's heartbreaking. And a lot of the stuff is all the time you see it's the landlords behind it. Many times you'll see like people, there's no reason if you're renting and even if you're not paying a rent, that you should have ceilings caving in and active leaks. And I've seen buildings where rain was coming in and plumbing was backing up and nobody cares. And it's heartbreaking to see that because I know that you can make all the profits and make all the money and all the exciting stuff that you and I are talking about while also giving people the respect they deserve and giving people good homes to live in.
That is fantastic. I mean, in every one of these podcasts, we look for that little teaser sizzle. That was yours.
Yeah.
That's going to be your teaser sizzle at the beginning of this. Yeah, the numbers are nice, but being able to have a bigger effect and impact on families and people's lives. I mean, this is where they're going to have Thanksgiving dinner, birthdays, wedding anniversaries, bar mitzvahs, Christmas dinners, whatever. This is around that marble countertop. How many memories are going to happen there? Right.
Yeah.
You're a part of that. That's awesome. So I do got to look at the numbers because it's unbelievable. So that $665,000 asset, which is now depreciating over 27 years. So yeah, I didn't even do that one. Let's look at that. That is a $25,000 tax deduction every year for the next 27 years.
Something like that.
Yeah, pretty darn close. That's
not
counting some of the other stuff that goes on. I did the math just before that one. The value of that property, that $53,000 income that college student would see as an annual salary, this property that we paid you $53,000 to own would pay you that $53,000 annually over the next 12 years.
Yeah, the property has a net operating income right around 80,000 a year. The mortgage interest that I'm paying right now, I think is, let's say, mortgage amount times interest rate. Good interest rates that I wish we could still get today. Maybe paying 30 grand a year in mortgage interest.
After the net?
Yeah, so your net operating income's 80,000, and then out of the net operating income, which doesn't include your mortgage payment, right? 30,000 of interest expense plus your 20,000 of depreciation. and your taxable profit's only 30,000, but you're actually receiving a lot more than that every month
So
or
net
every year.
after your mortgage, paying this property is 75,000 on the books all year long.
Yeah.
So at a 10 cap rate, well, actually, if we did the 80,000 at the 10 cap rate, your $665,000 purchase is now probably 800,000 or north of 800,000.
In terms of the value of the building,
Yeah.
no, more than that. I mean, maybe at a 10 cap, but that building appraised when I refinanced it for 1.1, and I'm seeing way worse property. I just saw another 6-family in the same town pop up on the market at 1.1, and it did not look like mine does. So
you bought this thing for 55 cents on the dollar.
yeah, it was a great deal. Yeah, we got a great price. I mean, granted, at the time there was lots of, it didn't look as great as it does today, but yeah,
But you had the vision.
There was the building doesn't have the most lovely history. One of the first things I learned, because that first year I was self-managing this property, and I saw when you walk in the front door, instead of like drywall on the wall in front of you, it was all plywood. And I said, oh, maybe that's just from people moving. They bang into it or whatever. And I asked one of the residents who'd been there for 10 years. She's like, oh yeah, a few years ago, there was a shooting here. And I was like, what's he talking about? Apparently someone shot up in front of the building with a machine gun. Maybe 10 years prior. It was something gang related went on. Luckily, nobody was killed in the incident. But she goes, yeah, if you take all that off, you're gonna see all bullet holes behind it.
Wow. Quarter inch.
Not like that today. It's a nice neighborhood now, or at least a lot more nice than it was. At least it's safe.
I'm still blown away by these numbers. In 10 months, you appreciated this value over 80%.
Yeah.
What other asset can you control, or control is the best word, that you could take where it is, apply this value add, apply that value add, and actually change the asset to have a different value at the end of it?
Yeah, it's so like behind real estate property valuations is just an equation. It's a market-based cap rate, which is constant in any market for the most part, and then that's applied to the net operating income, which is just the profit that the building generates, rents minus expenses. And if you double the rents, you increase the profit by that much, you double the profit, and next thing you know, you double the value of the building. It's that simple. So unlike if you look at an alternative investment, let's just say, buy and hold stock market investment. Once you buy it, you can try your best to pick up a company that's going to do well, but once you buy it, you can't control the value of that stock. But I know that if I buy a building, and I know that that basement in that building could be converted into self-storage, which based on the market could generate 20 grand a year in income. Wow. And boom, that's going to directly increase the value of that building. You just do it for a year, show it can be done, and next thing you know, that building's worth that much more.
So just to plug numbers on that, if you increased 20 grand annually at a 10 cap rate, you've increased the value of the property $200,000.
Yes, and all you had to buy was some 2x4s and chicken wire to build these little storage units.
And a couple of locks, right?
Yeah, some locks.
If you wanted to get fancy, you could get plastic sheathing so that people couldn't see what's in there, right?
Even better.
Yeah. And then you could use that roll of plastic sheathing for other stuff at other properties and other projects.
Yeah, and if it's in your basement of a building, it's basically climate controlled too. Basements are heated, at least some. There you go. Your storage. And all you did was just think of a better way to use that space, and you increase the value of the building that much, and that happens. It's an equation. You just do it. So you do if you do this, this will happen. There's no gambling behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, at any point the economy could tank and everything could go downhill, but you don't live your life worrying about that happening. You position yourself in a secure way where you can handle surprises and assume that the world isn't going to end, and you'll get there.
Well, I mean, yeah, comparing asset classes, I just think real estate is on steroids because you can control it. And I'd be shocked if your self-storage in that basement would have had a price tag of $4,000 or $5,000 to increase the value $200,000. And if you would have done that, say within the year, you took 2 extra months to build out those storage, you would have more than 200% raised the value of that property within 1 year.
Yeah, and this is just a hypothetical example, but yeah, if you have the space and you can do it, maybe you can maybe you have room to build a garage and you can rent or a parking space. You can rent out a parking space. If let's say you're building, the residents only need half the parking spaces that are there, you can rent out the other. Anything you can do to increase the income of the property directly increases the value of the building.
I think that parking strategy we did at your property, and what are we getting? $50 a spot, 2 extra spots, something like that. So if that's $100 a month, 12 is 1,200. Again, at that cap rate, just that one, can of yellow paint and a couple pieces of paper on an addendum raised the value of that property $12,000 at a 10 cap.
Easiest 12,000 I ever made, especially because I called you and said, "Hey Brian, can you do this?" And you said, "Sure."
Yeah, yellow.
That's all I had to do, and I made 12 grand.
Yeah. But yeah, I just love this. I love this stuff. Okay. Yeah, we're doing really good. I want to move on here. So I asked this next question, and it kind of developed its own life to take a two-prong approach. So I'm going to ask this question for 2 different answers. Looking back now, how long have you been investing?
First purchase was when I technically closed, that would be January of 2021. So almost 3 years, almost 3 years. But you add in 4 years of reading books and
waiting let's do that.
To close and all that. And maybe 3 plus 4, 7 years. 7 years of actively studying and learning and trying to make it in real estate.
Yeah. Please. Let's put on the extra years, because if I went on 2 years, it makes me look like a slouch. So if you could go back in time to the beginning of that light switch moment, engineer to real estate investor, 2 prongs. What piece of advice would you have given yourself back then starting? And then coming forward to today, what piece of advice would you give to someone starting today?
Okay, so I think I waited too long to go to that first real estate meetup. And I think it cost me probably a year, because that's probably how long I was. That's, from when I graduated college to when I went to that first meetup, I could have done it a year prior. And it would have just been 1 more year I had to grow my business. I'd be a year ahead of where I am today. Plus, it was a lot easier to make money in real estate 2 years ago. Not that it's not easy today, but it was even easier when interest rates were 4%. So the advice I would have given myself was start now. Once you've read a few books, and if you don't have some objective reason where you need to wait longer, jump in, go meet people, because that's how you get started. And then what was the second part of the question?
Sure. Now you are 7 years down the road. What advice would you give to someone who is on the fence to get started today?
The advice I would give to someone who's on the fence of whether to get started is, I think a lot of the advice would be from telling them my story, telling them what real estate can do for them, and and then tell them, think about what you want to do. And real estate isn't necessarily for everyone, but either you're in or you're out. You either want to do it or you don't. There's a lot of people out there sitting on the sidelines dreaming, but they're not serious, and they're procrastinating. And so get in, go 100% at it, learn what you can, do what you can, talk to as many people as you can, and just go for it. Or if it's not right for you, find something you are passionate about, because I don't know the other businesses that well, but there's plenty of other businesses out there that are probably great too for all different reasons. So find something you're passionate about and just chase after it.
So for yourself, you waited too long, or you're judging yourself. And I do that all the time. The only person I compete with is myself. So I'm fine with that. You would have started sooner. Definitely relationship business.
Yes.
The parallels to a beginner today, you're in or you're out, all in 100%, and start those relationships today. So
yeah. And one of the best ways to do that, if you're in, you decide you're in, build these relationships. And here's how I'd recommend. One, go to meetups. Even if you're not the most outgoing person in the world, it can be fun, and there's food. So just go there. A lot of the times there's free food, where you pay $5 at the door and you get all the pizza you want. So, and just meet a few people. You can meet people who are 10 years ahead of you or doing all these deals, or you can meet someone else who's just like you, and someone to bounce ideas off of. And the second one is, once you've met a few people, find a few people that you feel like you connect with, and get on a regular call with them. You call it what you want. Some people call it a mastermind. Some people just call it talking to their friends on the phone, whatever you want it to be. Find some people who have the same interests as you, get together, have a regular, weekly phone call where you talk about what you're doing, they're doing, what your ideas, what questions you have. And it's so much easier to navigate everything that's happening when you can combine your small set of experiences with other people's small set of experiences and compile it into a good group. So I have two guys that I'm in business. We've done a bunch of deals together, and it started out with them of just hopping on the phone once a week for a regular phone call to check in on what each other were doing on our own. And it slowly evolved into us buying deals together. And now we call it Blue Canyon Equity Partners.
Wow. All right, I'm gonna roll ahead here. I think I'm gonna know the answer. Huh?
Let's go.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna know the answer to this one, but we're gonna shoot it out there anyways. In your investing career, was there a book that made the biggest impact on you? Drum roll, please.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, Poor Dad.
And the second book,
well, hold on,
that I also mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
I want to stay on Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
If this is going to be kind of like describing the flavor of chocolate ice cream to somebody, yeah. What was it about Rich Dad, Poor Dad that was that epiphany for you?
I think it's tough to explain why that book is so impactful. I think there's a bit of magic in there, because the book there's nothing really that technical that it teaches you. It's not that profound. You read it, a lot of the stuff you're like, okay, that makes sense. I could have thought it out on my own. And I've heard that criticism of the book before. But it shapes, just for so many people, it changes. It can just shape the way you think about personal finances, basically. And it's made enough people rich where if you haven't read it, go read it, because who knows, you might just be one of those people. But for those of you who aren't listening to real estate podcasts all the time, the vast majority of real estate podcasts, somebody gets asked, what book do you like? And it's like an ongoing joke. Everyone's like, well, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but everybody says that, so I'll give you another example. If you haven't read it, read it, because maybe it takes 10 people to read it and one of them gets rich, but that's probably a better ratio than any other book out there.
For myself, to sum that book up, the epiphany moment for me was the difference between an asset and a liability. An asset puts money in your pocket, a liability takes money out of your pocket. So
Yeah, and that's really the underlying principle of the book is, buy things that make you money. It's like real life is like a big game of Monopoly. Monopoly is a phenomenal analogy of business, particularly in real estate investing. And it's just buy things that make you money. Think about what you're doing, strategize, and you'll get there. But yeah, assets make you money, liabilities cost you money. Don't go out there and get a $50,000 car loan just because the bank will approve it.
oh,
Instead, go buy the piece of real estate, and a year later refinance it. Use that money to buy the car, and now you get the car, and you got the house for free.
So that $50,000, based off of your examples, would have got you that duplex.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So, is there a second book that had an impact on your investing career?
Yeah, and that was the Commercial Mortgages 101, which I mentioned, and I think I just credit that because I think one of the biggest challenges of your first deal can be financing it, and that book showed me how to get a bank to take me seriously.
And how much did that book cost?
I don't know, probably $10, maybe 20.
Let's go with 20.
Okay.
Let's say we got the hard copy, the hardcover, right? $20. And 10 months later, it earned you $270,000.
What's that return on investment?
Well, that was your refi amount from the 6th unit.
Yes. Yeah. So that's some thousands of percents
Yeah.
return.
1,400% return on investment.
Probably more than that. Yeah.
And you still own the book, correct?
Yeah.
So this was not a one-off that you could only buy one property after reading this book.
No, not at all.
You get to use the information from that book again and again and again.
Yeah. And that loan request package I use again and again too, because every time I go and try to buy another property, I just cut and paste change out all the numbers, and I send the same document over, update it. And when I was refining that 6 unit, I sent out that loan request package to 7 different banks, and at least 3 of them, when they finally called me back or whatever, they said, "Man, I wish every investor sent these over. This is perfect. Thank you."
3 of them, huh? You went with one of them.
I think so. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I went with whichever one gave me the best terms at the time.
So the loan request package that you put together, I've heard comparisons of like an LOI, letter of intent. Is it in that same avenue?
Yeah, it was. I mean, if you really want to know, read the book, but it was basically, front page was like a street view picture of the property. Second page, Microsoft Word puts together a nice table of contents. So that just makes it look so much more professional. And then it had sections like building information, which was like this many units, this many square feet, this is how much parking it has, blah, blah, blah. Then another section was, here's my personal financial statement, right? Because oftentimes they're going to want to know that. So that's in there. Here's my experience. Here's my team. Here's all the financial analysis on the property. Here's the profit and loss statement. And then you can attach to the end of it, if you have the seller's tax return showing the income and expense, you can attach that. Proof of funds, you can attach that. It's just everything that they're going to ask you for anyway. So it'll save you time. It'll save them time. And it makes everything easier, and it makes you look respectable while you're doing it.
I'm so glad I asked the question about the LOI, because I was wrong. And your answer drilled down even deeper into your loan request package, which like I say, I learned something on every one of these podcasts, and I'm going to be listening to that clip that you just did right there. That was definitely worth the price of admission for anybody coming in today. All right, so that was wonderful. So, Mr. Davis, what's next for you in real estate, and why not get started today?
Next for me in real estate, I'm looking for more multifamilies to buy. I think few that I've done have gone so well. Properties, and I was saying this a year ago, I was saying this 2 years ago, but the harder to find good real estate deals than ever, but it doesn't mean stop looking. So we're going out looking at as many properties as we can, sending out letters to sellers, networking when we can, and trying to buy, the next deal. And there was a phase I was in probably a year ago where I was really focusing on, I want the bigger stuff. I want the 25 to 100 unit. Those are cool and sexy, and yeah, I still would love to get one of those deals, but I'm not stuck on that. I'm okay with a smaller 5-6 family, something like that. At the right price, I even buy a 3 family right now. And so, yeah, I would say you don't need to get caught up in trying to get the biggest thing or the sexiest thing. Yes, those have their advantages, but that's what I'm doing right now, is just trying to find another deal that's solid, looks good, that I can buy. And why not start today? I'm going, but it's hard to find these properties. You got to do as much as you can. You got to look at as many as you can. And how can I ramp it up? That's a good question. There's probably things I can do to ramp it up that I should start today.
What would you say today is the biggest challenge you have now that you probably didn't have 3 years ago?
Interest rates are high, and prices I don't think have come down proportionally in order to find properties that cash flow and pay their own mortgages as well as they did before. So the environment changed a little bit where, when everything worked really well, it was really hard to get the offer accepted, right? Because there was so much competition. And our kind of way around that was we would try to find stuff that's off market, reduce competition. Now there's just less properties being sold in general. The numbers are even tighter to find deals that where the rents and the profits will repay the mortgage. And so everything's just kind of tightened up a little bit. And I don't really see prices coming down. I don't see interest rates coming down. So I really think the path forward is, assume everything's going to continue to be kind of like it is right now, and build up a strategy to perform as well as we can in this environment.
Something I've been a reoccurring theme I keep hearing on these shows, the interest rate, right? Everybody's saying, okay, the interest rate is now higher than it was. It's probably never going to go down to 2 or 3 again. We may never see that again. A lot of the people who are investing today and buying deals are going to look like rocket science geniuses 3 to 5 years from now when they have to start to deflate these interest rates again, because they're going to be in a great position. The other part of the coin, the flip side of this that I see right now is, you went in experienced, you trained yourself, you went in smart. You have some investors who did an ARM, an adjustable rate mortgage, who now they're getting squeezed out of their properties because the rates are going up, their margins are drying up, they may have to sell at a discount. So we're seeing small and large commercial properties now starting to hit that threshold where owners are starting to feel the squeeze and the pain because their interest rates have been rising. One of the investors I had on the show, it was a $400 million investment down in Texas that was going into foreclosure because of the interest rates. Yeah, that's extreme. That's huge. But to your point, a 5, a 6, a 12 unit property, somebody may have bought it 3, 4, 5 years ago at that 3 or 4% interest rate. Now that is slowly getting squeezed where they're going to have to dispose of that property. So I don't know in your mailing campaign how granular you can get in sorting out the mortgages or going into the mass records, the land records, whatever. But if you can find, if there's a way, if you've got staff member or something that can kind of sort through your databases, looking for those particular types of loans, maybe you can target those people and start getting some of these off-market deals back into your plate.
Yeah, really any loan that's adjusting right now from, whether it be some sort of short-term bridge financing that was originated a year or two ago, or even something that was originated 5, 10 years ago. If it's adjusting right now, it's probably a higher rate. And
yeah, it's a
yeah,
different deal. It's a different deal than
yeah,
what they purchased 3, 4, 5 years ago. They probably
yeah.
wouldn't have purchased that deal under these terms 3, 4, 5 years ago, but now they have to. They have the mortgage. They're in it. So yeah, I see a lot of investors, meet a lot of investors on the show like yourself, who are seeing these opportunities coming, and the overall response I'm getting is keep the gunpowder dry and get ready to shoot.
Yep. That's a good way to look at it, is stay ready. Don't rush into something that's not the right thing, just because you want a deal. Yeah.
I have a surprise question that's not on the list.
Oh, I hope I can figure out an answer.
Well, I've gotten a lot of mixed responses on this one. I think when I asked this one, Nick Alroot actually cried because it was heartfelt.
You make me cry.
No, that's not my intent. Not my intent here. But
right.
What question on the show should I have asked you that I didn't ask?
I would say, and I hate to just give a technical answer after you talk about making someone cry, but
That's okay.
we didn't even get into all the things that have happened since that first project, right? So we talked about my first deal, which was the 6 unit, and the 2 family that came along with it. But since then, I mean, these 3 guys that these 2 guys that I've been working with, we're a team of 3. We've been hunting down deals, closing on as many as we can, that are good, solid deals. No, we're not doing 10 deals a year, anything, high volume like that, but we're looking at 3 a week. And we've grown a lot. We bought 2 more after that project together, and this was our kind of first experience working as a group. And then after that, we found an opportunity to do a syndication, which is a whole different strategy, which has all new nuances to it and different costs, and you're raising money from private investors and all this stuff. Phenomenal experience, but we went into that, and so far everything there is going as planned and very well. And there's a whole lot more to my story about all the things that have evolved since then. So I'm glad you asked that, because
we'll definitely have you on for a repeat. So
yeah.
So I'd say, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 years you've been actively purchasing real estate.
Correct.
Okay, first deal, ARV on the 6 was 1.1. I'm going to guess maybe 300-400 on the 2. 300.
For what?
The 2 family that was part of that 6, the 8 units.
Yeah. You're asking what the purchase price was?
Well, your ARV after you fixed it up.
Oh, after ARV. That one I bought at 290, and then it appraised at 380, and I cashed out 50,000.
Okay, so
and those refinances happened right around the same time too. So add that 50,000 cash out onto the 270. Look at it as all one big deal.
Okay, wonderful. So that was the seed money to get you into the next deals.
Next 2 deals, which were actually I don't want to say all the deals since then, but all the deals that followed were partnerships. So it didn't take all my money. It took like a chunk of it. Unlike that first deal, which I basically put my net worth into. And so we went out, we bought a 6-family again with 2 partners. So, you know, I only had to put down a fraction of the down payment on that one. And then I bought another one down the street from it, which is the one that you manage. And then after that, had some left over and actually bought a home which is the home I'm in right now, which is a house hack also. And so then there was some left over and I went into syndication and a couple other refinances since then.
So because of the answer I got from the question I didn't ask, I want to blow this up a little bit and
Let's do it.
you know, put some light on this, right? I want to put a spotlight on it. So your initial in for both of these, the 8 units, I'm guessing under 200. Now those 2 properties together, probably 1.8-ish, just on those deals. Those became your cash partners from the equity to put money into these other deals. So Blue Canyon right now, in the 3 years, what would you guesstimate is the net worth of assets in real estate in 3 years' time?
So as a company, our company actually doesn't own any real estate. We kind of use the company to find the real estate. And so we individually each own, you know, us 3 partners in Blue Canyon own either individually or through our own holding companies, real estate and partnership interests in each one of these ventures. So it's kind of hard to say. I can't say this is like the net worth of Blue Canyon, because the net worth of Blue Canyon is probably like under $1,000.
Fair enough. So I'm going to rephrase the question. For the 3 amigos, what would you guesstimate is their net worth in real estate today? Guesstimate. And
yeah, from our projects that we've done together, I would say it's contributed to our net worths combined by probably close to $1 million.
oh, it's got to be more than that. I mean,
Not really.
Well, your property alone.
Well, that first deal, which is where a huge chunk of it came from, was independent of the Blue Canyon group. That's why it's kind of convoluted here. But
so we're taking that one.
Yeah, so our first 2 projects, which were the 6-family and the 5-family, probably each contributed maybe $300K in net worth. So that brings us to maybe $600,000 in equity from those projects.
Okay.
Then we have the syndication, and while this is a phenomenal opportunity, we have investors. So as the syndication, we own just a fraction of that deal. And so there's probably, just right at closing, probably $1 million at least in equity in that project. But as partners, we own just a fraction of that.
Got it.
So combined in 2 years, we probably made $1 million.
Okay, so that's your slice of the pie off the table. I want to rephrase the question because there's a number I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
What would the total value of the real estate deals you have done to date be worth?
Let me do a little calculating here. Give me 15 seconds. Let's see.
If you have 30% partners in, I'm guessing it's somewhere between 3 and 5 million.
More than, well, okay, so the total value of the assets?
Yes, total value of
basically assets under management.
Yes, assets under management.
Yeah, so the New Bedford portfolio, which is the big syndication, is probably about $6.5 million in assets under management. Then we have the Air portfolio, which is another 1.5 million. So that's 8.5 million in assets under management. Then I have my Lowell portfolio, which is probably another 1.5 million. So that's about $10 million in assets that we together are responsible for. Then I got my home, which has good equity because We put a good amount down on that actually.
Well, we're going to put that in the liability column based on,
Yeah, we can put that in the liability column.
which is fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll put the
So,
downstairs unit that I live in the liability column, and we can put the upstairs unit that I have rented out in the asset column.
you're a house hacking it. That's right.
So that's what I do on my tax return, right? Because on our tax return, we split it in half, and it's half business use and half personal use. So,
All right. Now here's where I have.
okay, so we'll count that. So that's probably worth another $500,000 because it's in the.
All right.
So what does that bring us up to? $10.5 million in assets.
10.5. Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, I want to unpack the value of doing this type of an asset. All right. So there's going to be a lot of zeros on this, so just bear with me. All right. So we've got. I'm still putting in the zeros. Hold on. Okay. I'm going to divide it by 3 because there's 3 partners. Now I'm going to divide that by that. I'll say 60,000 a year. You guys got a raise, right? Okay. What you've done in the last 3 years would cover a $60,000 W-2 for the next 83 years.
I love it. And you know what? What makes that even more cool is that, not that this is necessarily the best strategy in real estate, but it's a cool way to think about it. These properties, yeah, you know, they all have mortgages, so certainly not worth $10.5 million in equity right now. But all we got to do is keep them afloat for 30 years. Then all the mortgages are paid off by the tenants, mind you, and that's just in our pocket. So all I got to do at the bare minimum is not go bankrupt
Yeah.
for 30 years, which isn't that hard unless something way unforeseen happens.
So
all I got to do is not go bankrupt, and now we have 10.5 million in equity.
Yeah, so you're going to be decamillionaires before you hit my age.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, good for you. No, it is. It is. Man, why would you not do this?
You got to do it. You got to do it. And I love teaching people, like whenever I have opportunities and people can handle talking about it, because sometimes I talk about real estate with my non-real estate friends too much, but every opportunity I get, I would love teaching people about this stuff and explain to them, like, why not do this, right? Because it's so impactful. You got to do it.
Well, you mentioned your friends and teaching them and educating them. So we are going to have you as a release date on the podcast, December 29th. You are going to be our last interview show for the year 2023. Congratulations.
I love it.
Yeah.
Great way to wrap up the year.
We'll get you everything you need so you can use this for your marketing, whatever it takes. So to all your real estate friends and peeps out there, people who see you on the show, how would you like them to get in touch with you to find out more about it and Blue Canyon and investing with you? And
yeah, absolutely. So you can find our company. We have a website, bluecanyonep.com. And there you can learn a little bit more about the projects that we've done and various projects that I haven't talked about on the show today. And then you can, reach me, matt@bluecanyonep.com. That's one of my email addresses. It comes right to my inbox. And you can also find me on Instagram at Matt Davis Real Estate. It's private, but I accept everyone for the most part that follows me. So Matt Davis Real Estate, and I don't have a ton of content on there, but one of these days I'll get around to hiring a VA to produce content for me because I'm terrible at it.
well, you got quite a lot of content from this show, and I'd be happy to get you all that. So happy to do that. Well, Matt, this has been wonderful. I want to thank you for helping me close out 2023 on the show, our first year out. This has been a pleasure for me. I hope you got some golden nuggets out of this. If there's anything you want to reach out to me after the show or any afterthoughts, something you want me to put into the show notes, I'll be happy to do that for you. So, ladies and gents, all my real estate peeps, this is Brian Lucier from the Why Not Real Estate Podcast, signing out of another show. See you in 2024. See you on the next one.